Sin City. Saturday night. Fight night. Any given weekend, this place is the entertainment capital of the world. When combat sports shines brightest on the Las Vegas Strip. Boxing and mixed martial arts need some new voices. And Franchise Sports Media got them for you. Join Kalani Lua and Griff and Kalani each week as they bring you news and hot takes from inside the octagon and the ring. Get your popcorn ready. It's showtime. FSM's main event starts right now.
What's going on, fight fans? Thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of the main event right here on Franchise Sports Media. I'm Kalani Lua.
I am Griff and Kalani.
Man, oh man, another fight week is upon us, Griff.
It's finally here, baby. It's finally here.
UFC 284 is going down. The main event will see a clash of champions. 155 king at the moment, Islam Makhachev, defending his title against the featherweight king, Alexander Volkanovski.
The great
Alexander the Great Volkanovski,
yes,
moving up to 155 to try to become one of the very few who can be called double champ.
Yep.
But he is taking on a monster in Islam Makhachev. Griff, this matchup right here, we obviously thought when Islam took on Charles Oliveira, the winner of that taking on Alexander, I personally was hoping that Charles would have been the one to win, but nonetheless, Islam Volkanovski, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Man, I mean, where do you even pick? I mean, you got the number 1 pound for pound going against the number 2 pound for pound fighter on the roster. You got the featherweight champ against the lightweight champ. You got different storylines. There's so many things to be excited about with this fight. But the biggest thing that I can't get away from, I can't stop thinking about it. Where is all the hype for this fight from the corporation that is putting it on? Where is the streaming? Where is the card building so that we can not just get these diehard fans, but the casuals involved as well? It just seems like the UFC's been lacking on this one, and it is so disrespectful. I mean, how can you not get excited for a card like this? Not a card. No, absolutely not the card. The main event itself is just, there's so much going on. There could possibly be UFC history being made this Saturday. And it seems like this fight is like a fight night pass card. It baffles me, and it kind of pisses me off a little bit to see all the slap boxing stuff, and the UFC seem like their minds are elsewhere. They're not focused on putting out and promoting their biggest bouts. I mean, granted, all that aside, this fight is going to be phenomenal. Whether you watch the prelims, the main card, as long as you tune into this main event, everyone has to watch. Everyone who's a fan of MMA, history is going to be made.
Tune into this main event. Make sure you watch this one, but also watch the main event of UFC. But I'm with you. Yeah. It does seem like, okay, wait. Islam Makhachev just won the title at 155, but he's coming in with a 23-1 record.
Yeah.
Number 2 pound for pound, as you pointed out. Alexander Volkanovski, 25-1, 12-fight win streak that he's on right now. Number 1 pound for pound, 2 of the pound for pound greats. This literally is going to tell you who is the best overall fighter in the UFC once this matchup is made. They are putting the title on the line for 155. So do we see one guy dethrone a tremendous run that we've seen Alexander on? Or do we see Alexander continue his reign of terror and show that I'm best at 145 and now I'm the best at 155? Yep. It is something, and it's happening in Australia. So it's in Alexander's backyard. So last time when Islam took on Charles Oliveira, it was in Abu Dhabi, a little bit closer to his home turf, a little bit closer. But now it's in Australia. I'm going to your backyard, man. I'm going to your barbecue. I'm going to take your shrimp off the barbie. Yep. It is something when you say, why is there more promoting behind it? But then again, you also have to say, for the fighters, you guys got to do a little bit better in drawing up interest from yourselves as well. Islam says some things about Alexander, being a shorter guy, being a smaller guy. Islam says, hey, I'm known as being a wrestler and a mauler. I want to knock this guy out. I want to finish him. I want to make a statement that, guys, I'm not just a ground fighter that's considered boring by some people. I'm literally going to go in there and knock this little guy out, where Volkanovski is like, whoa, wait a minute, mate. Wait, I was a state wrestling champion. I used to play rugby myself at 220 pounds. Good gosh.
Girthy.
Do not think you're just going to go in here and outbox me, because guess what? I took on one of the best boxers in all of the promotion, in Max Holloway. And what did I do? Boop, 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 boop.
pieced him
tagged him up a couple good times. So, sorry, Max, I didn't mean it like that, but it did happen. It did happen.
It happened.
This is a very good matchup. Now, we talked about leading into it. Let's talk about the actual fight real quick.
Yeah.
What is your key to victory for either of these fighters? What's one or two things both fighters have to be able to do if they want to be the ones that see their hand raised?
Well, for starters, if you're looking at Islam Makhachev, you've got the wrestling. You've got the wrestling to back up, and you're coming in here, and that is anyone looking at this fight, they're going to say, oh, that's got to be the one thing that Alex Volkanovski's got to worry about is the wrestling, getting taken down, the ground and pound. I think for Islam that he's got to come through with that. He's got to go in there and he's got to wrestle this man because I don't think his striking is anywhere near what Volkanovski's is. Volkanovski, like you said, he pieced up the blessed one. That is no small feat.
None whatsoever.
That is a man of, he has greatness in those hands.
That was hard to watch.
Showed it. Yes,
that was hard to watch.
It was violent. But that's what Islam has to do. But when it comes to Volkanovski, when this fight first got announced, I remember I was saying on the show, he's a small man. He's too small. Islam's too big for him. In some ways, Volk being the smaller guy might actually turn out to be the best thing for him. It actually might help him in this bout.
Okay.
Yes, because you're not a longer guy. You don't have the long limbs that are easy to get a hold of and put yourself in a hold and then the fight's over. You're small. You're able to squirm off. I mean, look at that fight with Brian Ortega. He survived the tightest clinch. That fight should have been done, but instead, Volk was turning purple. He looked like the purple Skittle, the worst Skittle. All right, he was just
debatable, but okay.
He survived, and then he was able to get out of it, and that was just a display of his greatness. And so for Volk, I think you come in. You still have to consider the wrestling. You still have to be aware it's going to happen. Be ready for any kind of takedown, but at the same time, kind of fight your fight. Fight where the fight goes. If Islam wants to go to the ground, we've seen Volk. He can survive when he gets taken down. He can survive in bad positions. And then when they get back up on the feet, he can just do what he does, baby. He can take those Aussie hands of his and just piece up Islam, do what he's got to do. But obviously, I think this fight, if I had to say now, I think this fight is going to be a good mixture of both. I think we're going to see a 50-50 when it comes to striking and both the action on the ground.
If I'm looking at it from Islam's perspective, I'm the bigger guy. I'm the stronger guy. We saw against Charles Oliveira where his strength really was something where you're like, whoa, this guy. We've seen him against other fighters, and you're like, okay, this guy's strong. Yeah. But taking on someone like Charles, who has been in there with some of the best at 155, and even he looks surprised, like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on, where's this Ivan Drago strength coming from? Did you get that needle in that arm when you was doing exercise during the montage? Never mind. But I'm not making any accusations. That's from the movie. But Islam, you got to be able to enforce your will. You got to be able to lean on him, wear on him. Smaller fighter, if you want to knock him out, you better stick that jab out there, keep him at the end of your jab, and every time he tries to slide in, because as a smaller guy, you got to be able to get inside. If he doesn't do the Mike Tyson ducking under, you got to be able to bam, hit him with the right, hit him with some knees. You get in the clinch, make sure you're the one throwing him against the cage. If you're Volkanovski, this what I'm thinking. Once one of the weapons he used against Max Holloway that nullified Max's movement, his leg kicks. Yes. And now, granted, it's a chance because when you take it on grapplers, you throw that leg kick out there, they're going to grab it, take it down. But we've also seen at times, you can whip it out there and maybe catch him on guard, especially if Islam's looking to strike with you. So if I'm Volkanovski, I'm not going to see where the fight goes. I got to take the fight to him. Yes. This is the champion. This is the bigger guy. One of the things I noticed when Islam took on Charles is that he surprised Charles with how aggressive he was. When Khabib, his coach, took on Justin Gaethje, he surprised Gaethje with his aggressiveness of always coming forward. Volkanovski cannot play retreat or counter in this one. He's got to come right at him, take it right to him, maybe even surprise him and do what Leon Edwards did against Kamaru Usman. Duck underneath and get a takedown. Ooh. Volkanovski's a quick guy, very strong, very sturdy. He ducks underneath one of those punches that Islam's trying to throw. Mm-hmm. Maybe he gets a takedown and surprises him. Starts to mess with him psychologically, like you said. Wait a minute, I'm supposed to be the one that's good in the grappling. I'm supposed to be the one that takes it to the ground. So maybe if Alexander could be the one to get a takedown here, push him up against the cage, not allow Islam to enforce his will. Maybe Alexander then could start chipping away at the mental fortitude that Islam has and shows he's not a machine. He's a man.
He's a man.
And so, to me, this is going to be about who can enforce their will first and often.
Yes, I agree. But at the same time, when you look at the fight, really have to. You also have to ask yourself, which fighter is going to do better when they are not in their wheelhouse, when they are in the position that favors their opponent. Like, for example, if you're Volkanovski, how is he going to do when he is on that mat and he's up against the fence and Islam is starting to hit him and he's starting to say, let's talk now. He starts to quote his coach.
Yeah.
Or what's Islam going to do when Volk gets a couple of those hits off? Maybe he gets a leg kick, and that leg kick is just throbbing the thigh.
All of a sudden, you start noticing it's a little heavy. That leg's a little heavy to slide around. Like, wait a minute, why can I move around so freely?
Everyone just seen him do the stanky leg up on the cage. It's nasty.
It's nasty. We've seen Alexander overcome adversity.
Yes.
We have not seen that from Islam. That is something where you do have to wonder, does Islam have that in him? Can Islam go in there, take on somebody who doesn't allow him to right away and immediately do what he wants to do? Put him in a position where he's uncomfortable. How would he adjust to that? Griff, you and I have watched enough fights to know there's some fighters. How do you react when you really get caught? Yes. How do you react when you really feel the guy's strength in the clinch and you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a different gorilla right here. This is a different animal I'm dealing with.
Right.
Sometimes you rise to the occasion. Other times you kind of fold and you don't know what to do. One of the fighters you kind of talked about last week, and he's taking on Gilbert Burns. Yep. So, it's one of those where I'm very curious to see who's able to do it first and how the other one responds.
Absolutely. I think what I'm most excited about with this fight, I am just excited to watch the great one, Volkanovski, get back in the cage, obviously. But I'm very excited to see how he handles this situation. I mean, a guy who started his athletic career as a rugby player, like we said, and he dropped all the weight, and now he's the king of featherweight.
No doubt.
And now he's going for that crown at lightweight. I mean, I'm excited to see, because it seems like the deck is stacked against Volk. It is absolutely stacked. You look at it. I mean, it's not just that it's a bigger weight class. They did a photo op, and I noticed just the height difference.
Oh, it's there.
There is a real height difference between these two men. The length of their limbs also. Islam's obviously got the longer reach, but I think it's also the fact that this man, who his coach is, where he comes from, that Dagestani blood and culture, there's an aura around Islam that was created when Khabib went on his run. It's just anyone who goes up against these guys, they are looked at as, you're screwed. You are in for a whirlwind. You probably aren't. You ain't matching up to this Dagestani fighter who is now the lightweight king. It seems like there's just everything against Volk. But that's what I love, is that this man, no matter how high the deck goes, he's not the Conor where he's trying to talk mess. That's not how he gets hyped up. He's not, passive like a Ben Askren. No, every time Volk speaks, it's just motivation.
Confidence.
It's inspiring. It's exactly confidence. And so seeing him take on this new challenge after everything he's already accomplished, I'm excited for him. I hope he comes out and he puts out a great show. I'm just excited for this, man.
I mean, how can you not be excited for this match? At the end of the day, all we want to see is a good matchup between two of the best fighters out there. I'm with you. Despite it being in Australia, it does feel like he's the underdog going in here. Yes. It does feel like you said, I'm taking on that group of fighters. Because again, when you do look at that corner, and this is one of the last times I believe we're going to see Khabib in his corner. He's going to step away and say, hey, look, guys, I want to focus on my family more. Kudos to him. But you're like, man, when you look at that corner, you look at just some of the coaches and fighters he has in there, you're almost like, I'm taking on a whole nation here. But Volkanovski's been in this position before. He stood across from Brian Ortega, had the Gracie family playing in his corner. He stood there when Max had his group of fighters there. He stood across from all these other great opponents who have challenged him. Now, granted, that was at 145. This is a different animal, but there is some familiarity with standing across from people who others thought was supposed to be invincible, or at least the aura of it was there.
Right.
Islam could be a different animal. We shall see. Let's we don't got to dive too much into it because we got other stories to get to.
Yes.
But just a quick reaction, just like they do with Dana White right after the fights. What's the very next step for either fighter? Win, lose, or draw. What's the next step for both fighters afterwards? Again, we don't have to. We'll dive more into it in a recap show.
Yes, of course.
But just your initial reaction of, just like I said, when Islam took on Charles, we knew Volkanovski was next. What's the initial reaction on what's next for both fighters after 284?
Well, here's the way I see it. we got Volkanovski coming up from 145. Win or lose this belt, you have to wonder, does he go back to 145? It's still an option. He can still go back down. He's still going to have the title. Max, I don't know. Do you make that matchup again? It's just too many times.
No.
Max,
you're 3-0 against him, Max. I love you, but no, that's it. You had 3 chances. That's it. 3 strikes, you're out.
Exactly. I mean, but at the same time, it almost feels weird to see Volk go back to 145 unless someone in that division will step up and say, yeah, I'm not Max Holloway, I'm not Volkanovski, I'm not Jose Aldo, but I don't give a damn. I'm here to make a statement. I'm here to get that belt. All right, you did your little fun thing at 155. Come back down here. I'm coming for the title. I haven't yet to see that. I want to see someone in that weight division step up like that.
Okay.
And it could still happen. As for Islam, a match with Oliveira might be in the books.
A rematch,
It might
maybe
be on the horizon. I believe it might be in the talks that Oliveira and Dariush are going in. They might be getting matched up.
They could be headlining the card themselves. The winner of that, especially Dariush, who's been waiting for a while for his title shot. If he was to beat Charles Oliveira, make sure you said the name right.
Yes,
but if he was to get a win, he would certainly seem like the one to get next. If Oliveira wins, do you run it back? Oliveira does say, hey, I feel like I could beat this guy. I was just off that night.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be mad if Oliveira got another chance at it. Honestly, yeah, Dariush, whoever wins that fight has to be the number 1 contender, has to get that next shot. Because, I mean, after that, you've got what? Dustin Poirier doesn't really have anything booked, but we've seen that with Oliveira, and we've kind of seen it with him when he fought Khabib. But this is a new fighter. This is not Khabib 2-0. This is Islam Makhachev.
This is true. This is true. So he's got to run through that gauntlet again.
He's got to run through the gauntlet. He's got to go and work his way up. Justin Gaethje's already booked. He's got his fight coming up. I mean, lightweight almost seems like it fell off a little bit from what it was just even a year ago. The hype around it, which for the longest time, this weight division was known as the most exciting on the UFC.
Still
roster.
is.
It still is. It's still exciting, but it's not as hot anymore.
It's very hot right now. I couldn't disagree with you more. It's very hot. It's very hot right now. Right now, they're just not in their fights just yet.
Okay.
But and again, we'll dive more into it later. But as you said, you got fights coming up and fighters waiting in the wing. They're just waiting to see the fallout of this particular one. After this fight of taking on another champion from a different division, now the contenders, you start saying, okay, this guy, and you get a chance. And again, like I just said, Islam, even though his coach did it, you got to run through that gauntlet again, buddy, because you didn't face these guys. Oliveira faced most of these guys. Khabib faced some of these guys. You have it. So, and you didn't beat them on the way to the title. So you got to get there. We'll dive more into that after 284, and we'll see what the fallout is, and we'll go from there.
Of course.
Speaking of going from there. Speaking of the division, needing some fire to it. Needed some pepper. Needed some. Hey! They just got a shot of, oh my God, somebody on this show, I'm not pointing any elbows, is going to be unbearable for a few months. So Dana White announced that the long-range show, The Ultimate Fighter, which really saved the company, Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonner, season 1,
history.
Some great fighters that come from there.
Absolutely.
We've seen some great coaches on there. We've seen some great matchups on there. He announced for Tough Enough 31. The coaches will be Michael Chandler in one corner, representing good old Team USA.
Yeah. But let him know who else is going to be on there, brother.
He's going to be taking on someone who's already been there before as a coach.
Yep.
The former 2-division champion, the former pound-for-pound king, the pay-per-view magnet, the Irish, the notorious Conor McGregor.
Let's go. Come on.
Team Chandler versus Team McGregor on The Ultimate Fighter. Your love child, your man crush. Conor McGregor returns weekly television on The Ultimate Fighter, taking on Michael Chandler. 1, it's going to be a good show.
Yes.
2,
absolutely.
It's going to be a fantastic matchup when those two step in the cage. Griff, I'm going to give you some time here. McGregor, Chandler. There you go.
It's been a minute. It has been a minute since the Notorious One has blessed us with his presence in any affiliation with the UFC. All right. It has been a long, long time. It has been bumpy. It's been a bumpy road.
Few bumps.
Few bumps. Few bumps with the law. Few bumps with, there's been a couple things.
Few bumps.
But here it is. We finally have made it. We finally got an announcement that Conor McGregor will be back. He will return. And he is going to be not just returning into the octagon, but giving us a full season of The Ultimate Fighter along with it. Beautiful. Who was the coach when he did the first season of Tough, or when it's his first season?
Well, it was Uriah Faber.
It
was him and Uriah Faber. They had their little back and forth, but it wasn't going to be a matchup between those two.
No, yeah, they didn't end up fighting, but I loved that season. That season, it was just so funny that those two men, to see their personalities, and even though they didn't end up fighting at the end of the season, you still had a little bit of animosity between the two. It was funny because they respected each other, but there was also a lot of talk, a lot of mess being said.
Yeah, there was a competitive nature to it.
Yeah,
two different styles. Conor, as you've always pointed out, he comes dressed a certain way.
Yes, he does.
Uriah Faber, the California kid, a little bit more laid back. So they definitely had their little clashes. But like you said, it never seemed like it was a dislike for one another. No. Just a competitive nature between two guys who, look, Uriah Faber, I'm sure, probably felt like, hey, if you really want to do this, like, I'm about to retire. I'm not a 55er, but I'll fight you, Conor.
Yeah.
Like, we can get down with it. That's when he famously dubbed TJ Dillashaw Snake in the Grass.
Snake in the Grass.
Which was very unfortunate tag to give to the man. He was just looking out for what he thought was in his best interest. But nonetheless.
Man tattooed it on his body afterwards. I mean, what does that say about it?
Well, I mean, I think he kind of just leaned into it very much so. Yeah. He also did some other things with his body. They got him suspended for 2 years. So, hey.
Yeah, he did.
But at the time, he felt he was doing what was right. But we are getting Conor McGregor back. And, you know, I give you a lot of ish about it because he hasn't won a fight in what? His last win was in 2020.
Last fight against Cowboy. That was his last win.
That was his last win. He's 1-3 in his last 4 bouts. Yeah. Those 3 losses he got dominated in, including a brutal knockout, a leg break, a submission, where on the biggest stage of all, and he tap. It wasn't even a choke. It was a crank, and he tapped out to it. Nonetheless, he's magnet. Ratings, people love him. Fans want to tune in. I'm not gonna lie, Griff. I want to watch the show,
absolutely,
but I also want to watch it because of the dynamic of how's McGregor going to be. One thing about Conor, and he doesn't get a lot of credit for this. Conor does have a mind for the fight game.
Absolutely.
The way if you hear him just talk outside the trash talking, if you hear how he speaks about preparing for fights, his mindset going into it, the advice he tries to give other fighters,
yes,
you look back and you're like, this guy really does try to help out others. We've seen some coaches on Ultimate Fighter. They're just there. They're just like, whatever, like, okay, cool, hey, hit him. You know, Conor's really in there trying to work you and trying to say, look, buddy, this is what you could try to do. Go in with this mindset, take this out. You know, and at the end of the day, you got to be able to show up. And you know, with his temperament, he's going to be a character every single time when the fight's going on, win, lose, or draw. But he's taking on another interesting guy, Michael Chandler, who, if you remember when he joined the UFC, he called out everybody at 55. And he called Joe Boy out and said, I'll make it easy for you. Let's fight at 170. That way you ain't got to cut down. There's no excuses. No, you can stay at 170 or at 190, whatever you are. Because, man, we've seen pictures of Conor looking jacked.
That boy is thick these days.
Michael Chandler, and in a good way, but Michael Chandler's like, wherever you want to do it, buddy. He's also got a tremendous story in himself. He has shown, win, lose, or draw, he's must-see TV inside the octagon. His fights are, you got to sit down and watch it. Blink and you miss something, and you miss a highlight. Him taking on Conor, and obviously we got plenty of time to talk about that particular matchup, but I'm very curious to see how their personalities as coaches, how they will go. Will Chandler buy into some of the antics and fight back verbally with Conor, or will he take the approach of, hey man, like we saw Dan Henderson do with Michael Bisping, hey man, whatever you want to do, I'm just here for the guys, we'll settle our time in the ring, and he just focuses on the fighter. We'll see, but it is something where I'm definitely intrigued to watch.
I'm very interested. I think, and especially put the Ultimate Fighter aside, looking at this just as this matchup, I think they got it. I think they hit it right on the nail. They got the perfect guy to welcome back Conor McGregor. Because as we've seen with Michael Chandler in his short stint with the UFC, he's similar to Conor in the way that Dana White and the UFC see him. They see him as a, like you said, he's box office. He's going to put on a show every time he touches the octagon. Look at his fights with Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, the way he got Tony Ferguson out of there.
Ooh, one of the most brutal knockouts we've ever seen.
Disgusting. I mean, what he did in that fight.
Dan Hooker.
Dan Hooker in his opening fight with the UFC was amazing.
I'm here, guys. I'm here.
And then how close it was even with his fight with Oliveira. I mean, the guy entertains no matter what. And those personalities, especially anybody who goes, and if you research, you can find millions of podcasts and interviews of Michael Chandler. His personality is one that is just, it's contagious. It's hard not to feel like when you watch him, like, damn, I wish I could talk to this guy. I wish I was involved.
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
It's his personality, which is, I won't say it's very positive. He's a very positive guy. He's gonna try. He's gonna be he's gonna be trying to intimidate a little bit. He's gonna try and be an aggressor, but at the same time, he's a very positive guy. But then you've got Conor, and Conor's going to come at him with every type of way. And if you think we're going to see the nice cowboy Dustin Poirier Conor that we saw for a little bit of there, you're absolutely wrong. He is going, knowing that he's going to fight that man throughout that season, knowing he's going to fight him at the end of it. You're crazy if you think Conor's not going to try to play those iconic mind games every time they meet. Every time he's going to say something. He's going to say something slick. He's going to say something that's going to see if he can get Michael Chandler just pissed and do something he's going to regret.
That's what's so amazing about this particular one is how are they going to decide to go about it? Because you're right. Conor can play those mind games with some of the best of them. Mm-hmm. We also saw when he comes back against Habib, against Dustin, the second time around, his trash talking wasn't on the same level. Even Dustin said, hey, man, old Conor was better. So the time away, has Conor gotten back into that rhythm? Has that fire been lit? Being around the young fighters, maybe that helps him a little bit. Reignite some of the, kind of like in Rocky 3, you go back to the basics, go back to the drum board, go back to where you're looking at these fighters trying to get to the UFC. They want to be where you're at, and it's like, you know what? Eye of the tiger. Yes. Okay, the fire's been reignited. Chandler has all the motivation in here. Conor, a little bit harder, like the great marvelous Marvin Hagler said from boxing. It's hard to get up and run 5 miles when you're waking up in silk sheets. And for Conor, he's definitely got silk sheets. So it's one of those where you're like, okay, does Conor come in with the motivation and already and determination, or does being around the fighters, being back in that atmosphere, that hungriness of trying to get there, does that reignite the fire and the flame in there for him to go back to that? Does he trash talk him? Does he play the mind games? Does he play the cool route to try to, I don't know, maybe lower his defenses? I don't know. But that's why you got to tune in and watch. That's why we got to watch, buddy, because it's going to be interesting to see what route they decide to go.
Absolutely. And I'll say this will be my final point on the matter. I'm going to look right in the camera. God, I hope Conor watches this show. I hope you do, brother. But I will say this. Whatever Conor comes out this year and does The Ultimate Fighter, play whatever games you got to do whatever you got to do. But when it comes time, when that fight is booked, when they know the weight class, when they know the location, when they are going up and they're doing the interviews and the press conferences, all I ask is this. Conor of old, the reason so many people love this man, he was real. He was sincere. When he was talking mess, he wasn't just doing it. He meant those words. He meant every bit of it. And when we watched those press conferences and everything going on with Cowboy, everyone loves Cowboy, so maybe it was nice to see Conor not thrash him. But then the fight with Dustin Poirier, and he was still doing the nice guy thing, and then he tried to flip it around after he lost and try to go back to it. But it wasn't sincere. It wasn't inspiring. What's inspiring is when Conor is on his game, and everything he does with intent, and he does full-heartedly. I hope that's the Conor McGregor we see back in the octagon this year. Can't wait.
Well, I'm going to look right into the camera myself, and I'm going to say, listen here, we got Michael Chandler stepping in there. Mike, you wanted this. You've shown outside the UFC for a long time that you was worthy of being on the roster, and since you've been in the UFC, you have shown I could play with the big boys. I'm here. I'm Michael freaking Chandler, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm one of the best in this division. I don't care who you put across from me. I got my opportunity. You wanted the big fight. You called for the big fight. Well, here you go. This is your opportunity. You get to have X amount of weeks standing across from that man every single day while filming this show. Then you know you got to go to camp and get ready for him. This is your chance. Now, you said you're going to put him down in 2. All right, buddy, this is on you. So how I rhymed that there? See how I rhymed that there? That's his Mystic Mike. Not Magic Mike, that's a different one, but Mystic Mike prediction. Mike, this is your chance, buddy. You're gonna be on the biggest stage you could possibly ever be on. You're gonna be against the biggest fighter as far as eyeballs and attention on them that you'll ever be against. This is your chance to go out there and show up. Don't give us that, oh man, I was just off that night. Yes, that happens, but no, this is your opportunity. You get one chance, one moment. What are you gonna do with it? We shall see.
The Irish people, we're waiting, baby. We're waiting. Come on.
Trust me, you ain't have to wait long. You ain't have to wait long.
Yes, sir.
USA coming. We coming, baby.
Let's go.
As we end the show, I think it ought to be fitting that we pay our respects to somebody who ended a tremendous career. One of the all-time greats. So say what you will about him, but we could dive more into it into our next show. But Fedor Emelianenko retires from mixed martial arts competition. Yes, this man never fought in the UFC, but good gosh almighty, one of the most feared fighters in all of combat sports history. A record of 40-7 in his entire career. 16 knockouts, 15 submissions. He fought a who's who, a litany of heavyweight monsters throughout his entire career. He had a 10-year run of being undefeated. There was a no contest in there due to a cut, but Big Nog Nogueira, legendary, beat him. Mirko Krokop, right leg hospital, left leg cemetery, beat him. Kevin Randleman, the big former UFC heavyweight champion, beat him. Tim Sylvia, Andrei Arlovski, 2 former UFC champions, beat them. He's had his struggles when he did come, when it was Affliction, then it became a Strike Force and Bellator. You know, his wins and losses, but by that point, he was already in his late 30s. This man is retiring at, 45, 46 years old? So his age is up there. Fedor, the last emperor, he had a tremendous run. One of the most feared guys. And what was crazy about him, same emotion the whole time. Walks there very stealthily, doesn't say much, doesn't look the mold of, some jacked up, big, humongous guy. Just no. But he has some of the fastest hands, some of the hardest hits, cardio for days, can submit you. His son, look, he was one of the initial guys who kind of popularized the style of Islam and even Habib with the Sambo wrestling, where he kind of showed, hey, this is a mix of wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and we're just going to dominate guys with that. Fedor, thank you so much for all the memories, for all the great fights. It's unfortunate we didn't get to see you in the UFC, but at the end of the day, you fought a who's who of it. We never got to see him versus Brock Lesnar. We did get to see him take on Frank Mir. We never got to see him take on Randy Couture, but we did get to see him take on everyone else. Thank you so much for all that you did for the sport. Enjoy life afterwards. Will he be in the UFC Hall of Fame despite never fighting in the UFC? We shall see. He deserves it, but we shall see. Maybe he'll be the first.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And just a quick shout out to Bellator. I mean, after that fight, they have all these MMA legends. You had Chuck Liddell, you had Randy Couture,
Gracie, Matt Hughes, all of them, Rampage.
All these guys, all on the same stage in the middle of the octagon. They're all gathered together just to see Fedor off in his final fight. That was very beautiful. That was something, as a fan of MMA, it doesn't matter what promotion it is. You pay respect to these athletes that are just getting it done and putting out performances and putting years of their lives into this. It was great to see. Fedor, well-deserved legend.
Shout out to Ryan Bader for the victory last night, retaining his title. Whoa! That's been another edition of The Main Event right here on Franchise Sports Media. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned in for more. I'm Kalani Lua.
I'm Griff and Kalani.
Till next time, fight fans. Peace.